Everybody, welcome to Football Sucks. I'm your host, Ted Glover, and with me are my partners in crime. My co-host with Vikings Report, Drew and Ted, Drew Bunning, the founder, lead blogger, and head proprietor of the SB Nation Minnesota Vikings website, the Daily Norseman, dailynorseman.com, Christopher Gates. And behind the scenes, like the wizard from the Wizard of Oz, is Ruby making all this happen. This football weekend sucked, boys. I mean, I don't know what to say. Vikings are getting beat down like 41-10. My college team lost last night in heartbreaking fashion. I don't know. I did not see this outcome from this game today. Chris, did you? I'm speechless. I'm absolutely speechless. Chris, you're muted, buddy.
Ruby, unmute me, damn it. All right.
There you go.
I am looking so forward to the Vikings game this afternoon. I think it's going to be a good one. Oh, wait, game's already started. Crap.
Yeah.
What? I don't know. I mean, the way the game started, I mean, you force a 3-and-out, you get a blocked punt, you set up at the 1-yard line. And when you get 3 points in that situation, it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the day. And the thing that concerns me now is the injury issues because, I hope what happened to Brian O'Neill isn't too bad, because if we lose that guy, we're in some pretty serious trouble.
Yeah, Drew, more than the beatdown, which is just embarrassing. When it's your arch rival, you have a chance to essentially eliminate them from the playoffs. Now they control their own destiny, I think, going into next week. You add that embarrassment on top of the potentially really bad injury that Brian O'Neill has. How are you feeling as we head to the final week of the regular season and then the postseason?
Ted, I was going into this football week. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Going into this football weekend with a big old grin on my face, and right now it all slid down the crack of my ass. First off, any of you kids out there, buy these stickers. Be careful, they're a choking hazard. That's enough said about Michigan. But you got Michigan playing to get to the national championship, Ted. Vikings today combined 92 points allowed between both teams. It has been a dreary weekend of football, and you have to be concerned about the Vikings getting their tits licked this many times in a season.
Against good teams, yeah.
Drastically getting outcoached and outplayed, and there's a lot to talk about. I'm looking forward. By the way, Happy New Year, gentlemen.
Yeah, hey,
Happy New Year to you,
everybody.
Yeah,
Happy New Year to everybody joining us tonight. We want to get, if you have questions, you got a comment. We got a lot to go over tonight because this team is, what is it called? Influx, Ted? There's some problems, but I'm with Chris Gates. My initial thought right now is you got to get our right tackle back, but there's a lot to go over tonight. So wherever you guys want to start, I got a few notes I'd like to chip in with.
I don't know if this team is influx. They're giving me reflux right now. That's probably worse. But good God, I want to apologize to Ted too, because I jinxed Ohio State last night, because I sent him a message during the game that kind of asked him if the post game show today was just going to be 45 minutes of Drew yelling at him, and then Ohio State lost, so I officially jinxed Ohio State last night. So Ted, I want to apologize.
All right.
Both our teams are out of it, man.
This entire weekend has sucked. So yeah.
So, there was a lot of discourse on the internet this week about advanced statistics and the Vikings actually not being that good, even though they're 12-3. And it got tiring and it got exhausting, and I'm sick of it. But is there something to it? I mean, like Drew, you mentioned the Vikings now, they're going to go to 12-4, and they have been flat out embarrassed against Philadelphia, Dallas, and now Green Bay.
The Lions game was embarrassing too.
The Lions game, I mean, they played better than those other 3 games, but still lost. And those are 4 playoff caliber-ish teams, and they got their they got run, man. I mean, yeah. This is something that I didn't think too much about it. I thought, everybody has a bad day, but you can't have this many bad days against good teams before it's not something to be very concerned about.
Well, do you guys want to break this down by game or get right into the offense, defense, and talking about that? Because it's up to you guys, however you want to do it.
I mean, everything sucked. I mean, I don't know. You can talk about whatever you want to. I just, it was bad all the way around.
One thing I wanna touch on, and I don't know how this works in the NFL or anything like that, but for the first few possessions, I saw dudes from the Vikings constantly losing their footing, slipping and sliding around the field. Justin Jefferson fell on an interception. What National Football League teams have like people that are supposed to do things for the players to prevent that kind of thing from happening, right? I mean, like making sure they have the right Where I don't know if those people took the holidays off for the Vikings or what the hell the deal was, but that shouldn't happen. You know, you're going to Lambeau. You know, it's basically a cow pasture at this point in the season. I mean, make sure you're dressed appropriately. I mean, that shouldn't be too big an ask. But apparently,
Yeah, that was noticeable right away. I mean, Justin Jefferson was slipping, Hawkinson, Adam Thielen. But you know, Drew, if we could talk. Well, let's start with the block punt to kind of start the game. I mean, the Vikings hold the Packers. I think it was a 3-and-out. Green Bay might have gotten one first down. Green Bay goes back to punt. Josh Metellus blocks it. The Vikings are set up on the 1-yard line, and it just was kind of a foreshadowing for the day. They couldn't get in the end zone. They couldn't gain 1 yard up the middle. Austin Schlotman got hurt. Brian O'Neill got hurt later in the game. And God, man, it was just from there, it just went downhill for the offense. I mean, Kirk Cousins was a turnover machine today, 3 picks and a fumble. The offensive line wasn't great. I don't know. Where do you want to start with this?
Bottom of the Jack Daniels bottle. First off, real quick on the cleats. That's all supposed to be pregame, handled by the coaches in conjunction with the equipment guy. And usually what the players do is the wide receivers will talk to Keenan McCardell. He knows what kind of cleats to wear. There's different graded cleats, a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, and a 6. They're all different lengths. All that's supposed to be dialed in. And usually if a guy, you see him changing his cleats on the sideline, that's the guy who said before the game, I'm not wearing what you're recommending. I'm going to wear what I'm comfortable with, which is fine. Guys are comfortable. It's their feet. It's their shoes. But, you know, it seemed like there was a lot of slipping and sliding going on out there. I don't think that, maybe they didn't have the right cleats on, but that happens. Not using it as an excuse, but it didn't. The Vikings are lacking some attack, Chris. They don't attack. I want to throw this out there real quick, and you can address it somewhere along the show, Ted Glover. Maybe we should seriously think about getting an offensive coordinator. And I know people are going to be mad about it. I know Kevin O'Connell is probably not going to give up that role, but we have no creativity on offense. You come out in the second half, you're down by 24, and you're huddling and using the play clock and forming together a 16-play drive when you need a bunch of points. That's ridiculous.
Which ended in a fumble. So, yeah.
But you got to be in no huddle. You got to do something to spark the team. It seems like O'Connell has the same game plan going all the time. It just, what am I missing on that? I mean, I would like somebody to point up the schedule real quick to look it up. Just read off the scores we've had since week 1. Not who we played, just 14, 20. If we can do that within the next half hour, I don't have my stats because we had a big storm.
Yeah. I'll pull it up here in a bit, but a couple of things I'll point out. Let's see, who is it? Tom Pelissero reporting Austin Schlotman suffered a fractured fibula. He's done. So yeah, how weird is it that everyone's bitched for 4 years about wanting to replace Garrett Bradbury? You'd give your left arm to have Garrett Bradbury out there right now, I think. I mean, damn. But another touchdown for the Vikings. Nick Mullins with his first touchdown pass as a Viking, so that makes it a little closer. But yeah, well, I'll pull up the scores for the Vikings this season, and we'll just run them down.
While he's pulling that up, folks, we got about 275 people in the chat room. First of all, thanks for joining.
Hey, everybody.
Vikings Report Rewind with Drew, Chris, and Ted, and Ruby's in the background. Look, just say hi, give us a like, and we're going to be giving away a prize at the end of the show, I think. Yeah, we will. Sure, why not? Ruby and Drew are having some internet problems out in California, so if the show crashes, it'll be over. Sorry, they had a bad storm last night, but we're gonna stay up as long as their cable company or internet service allows.
I slept through it all as usual. So.
But yeah, it's
let's talk about the offense, Ted.
Yeah, I've got those scores whenever you're ready for them.
Go ahead.
I'll just read them all.
Thank you, Chris, for doing that.
Win 23-7, loss 24-7, win 28-24, win 28-25, win 29-22, win 24-16, win 34-26, win 2017, win 33-30, loss 40-3, win 33-26, win 27-22, loss 34-23, win 39-36, win 27-24, and now apparently loss 41-17.
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
No problem.
It seems like we're not generating enough offense, scoring or anything. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm expecting too much or watch too much college football. But so the Vikings, I mean, a lot of times I look at the TV, Ted, and I look at Toonsis and I go, it's the third quarter. We have 3 points. I do that a lot. I'm going, what are they doing? What are they doing all these possessions in the game? I mean, if the game was 3 quarters long, we'd have 1 win. I mean, what are they? I think they could be doing a lot more. And you can't say we don't have the weapons. Maybe the O-line's a little banged up, but look at those guys on offense, man.
Yeah, I
don't know.
God, I see. I don't think the offense has been that bad. If there's a thing that gets me is the Vikings running game is just not a very efficient running game. I mean,
it's not there.
It's one of the worst in the NFL in terms of total yards, and it's also not good usually at getting a good situation for the Vikings offense to be in. I don't know how many times Dalvin Cook has run up the middle for 1 yard or no gain this year. I mean, second and long is not good when you could be 2nd and 6, and you know they're not in those 2nd and 6, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. And today, you know, with Schlotman out and Chris Reed having to come in, I mean, there was just no communication between Kirk and Reed and the rest of the offensive line. There were offside penalties, delayed game penalties, and
false starts,
mm-hmm. And God, it was just terrible. Now, hopefully, with Schlotman out, if Bradbury's not going to be back, they can have a week of practice for Reed and all that, and we'll go from there.
I'll shoot it back to Chris. I think Reed's a better center anyway than Schlotman.
He wasn't today. He was terrible.
No,
today.
Well, he wasn't ready to go today, and 3 false starts, and then sometimes he's holding the ball too long. I don't know. We'll let him get a week of practice of the reps all week, and let's see how he does. But
and one of the things that bugs me now, and this is a pet peeve I had in the previous coaching staff. There were 2 or 3 games a year, and they were big games, and they're situationally big games with playoff implications or first place on the line, whatever, where the Vikings just flat out did not show. And that's now a thing with Kevin O'Connell coach teams. And the first time I could say, all right, fine, whatever. The Dallas game was coming off that big Buffalo win. The Philadelphia game was the second game as a head coach. You kind of had okay, but sort of things. But these last 2 games in the division on the road, you flat out got your ass kicked, and the Vikings did not look prepared, and that's very concerning for me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, because we already touched on the equipment issue. That shows a lack of preparation, and I mean, like you said, you're already on your number 2 center with the offensive line at this point. The guy, he gets hurt down on the 1 yard line. You're facing a 3rd and goal for the 1, and your first play call is to run it directly behind the 3rd string center again. Yeah. I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, I know Chris Reed's a professional, and he gets paid to do his job and everything, but mix it up a little bit, because that goal, we talked a lot about how good Kevin O'Connell's play calling in the red zone has been for most of this year, but that series was just atrocious.
It was bad. It was terrible, and it sets the tone for the whole game. I don't, Chris, I don't know if you remember or not, but Drew, it reminded me of Super Bowl 11. You remember when Fred McNeil had that block, and the Vikings were set up on the 3, and then they fumbled it, and the game got out of hand.
Why did he hand that ball to McClanahan? Why was Chuck Foreman? I know you want to show Chuck. Come on the show and tell us why you didn't get that handoff.
It kind of this whole day felt like that day.
That's really a great comparison. That's exactly how it felt.
I fortunately or unfortunately do not remember that. When that game took place, I was 3 months old. And I'm pretty sure I can still see Willie Brown returning that interception for a score that we saw on NFL films all the time.
I think what Ted's talking about, playing so crappy in all those Super Bowls, and all of a sudden, an early break goes our way. I think it happened in the first quarter, didn't it, Ted?
Yeah, it's the very first
We're all
series I think
fired
the
up.
Raiders had. Yeah,
This is going to be a different day, and then it all went to shit after the fumble. But different story for a different show. I don't know what's wrong with the offense. I keep talking to people about. It seems very conservative, Chris and Ted. It just seems run up the middle for a yard, incomplete pass on a 5-yard flare out, and then a 2-yard gain, and we punt. I mean, I see these drives thinking this is just terrible. And then they don't take advantage of getting that turnover on downs. Yeah. They got turnover on downs. They didn't take advantage of it. Yeah. The blocked kick, didn't even take advantage of that, even though they got 3. I don't see enough creativity. Too many. Does it seem like we're attacking or not attacking? I mean,
no, they're not.
No, not really. I mean, I don't understand why the running game is as bad as it is for this team. I mean, we talk about the interior of the offensive line, and I've said this on the show a few times before. Dalvin Cook getting paid a lot of money to be this bad. I mean, he carried the ball 9 times today for 27 yards.
That's
until Alexander Madison got a few carries there at the end of garbage time. Kirk Cousins was our leading rusher for most of the afternoon. That's never a positive. As fun as it is to watch Kirk go scramble, that's a bad thing most of the time. But I don't know what it is with this team. I mean, we understand that they've already wrapped up the division. Yeah, they're the 2 or the 3 in all likelihood, but these are just games where they don't even show up.
Right.
And
you
can't. And I know in a couple of weeks you're facing a wild card team, and it might be somebody you've already beaten this season. You can't do this kind of crap in the playoffs because you will lose. And you will probably lose bad.
So the 49ers and the Raiders are in overtime.
Come on, Raiders!
Well, it looked like the Raiders just threw an interception. The 49ers returned it deep, so we'll see. There's a flag on the play, though. Either way, it doesn't feel with Schlotman's injury. Brian O'Neill was potentially seriously hurt. So what do you do if you're the Vikings now? Do you rest any other starters after what transpired today at Chicago next week in a similar outdoor condition field and all that kind of stuff? Or do you still think the second seed is something you play for?
Well,
great question, man.
That's a really good question. I mean, obviously our mentality as fans is not going to be the same as the mentality of the players and coaches and whatnot. But I mean, if you look at the rest of the NFC seeding, the Giants are locked into the number 6 spot, and the number 6 team plays the number 3 team in the first round and whatnot. So if the Niners can come back and win after this interception, and that would jump them to the 2 spot over the Vikings based on conference record. So the Vikings would drop down to the 3. I mean, if you're looking at the teams that could be the 7 seed, then Green Bay could be the 7 seed, Detroit could be the 7 seed. You've lost to both of those teams recently, but you've beaten the Giants in your house recently. So if they're locked into the number 6 spot, and if you're the 3 seed, you get to face the Giants rather than potentially facing Green Bay or Detroit. And you've got these injuries, and like we said, Lambeau Field's a cow pasture by this point of the year. Soldier Field is probably even worse. So you don't want to risk anyone else getting hurt. I mean, if I'm the Vikings, I sit guys next week because it really doesn't matter.
Well, Robbie Gould's coming in to kick what would amount to be like a 25-yard field goal to win it for the 49ers. So it's the Vikings. The Vikings in about 30 seconds are going to be the 3rd seed in the NFC now.
That breakdown right there by Chris Gates, I think you should be able to go into the prize vault and pick out something. That was perfectly said, man. That was so perfectly said. I can't disagree with it at all.
As an employee of a Vikings Report with Drew and Ted LLC, I don't think I'm eligible for the prize vault. But
no, you're not.
That's fine.
We got it's without that Jefferson record on the line. If you're gonna, you got to sit your guys now. You're really playing for the 1 seed. That's out the window now.
It is.
Yeah.
I was gonna say next week if we got a chance to do that, because Philly's, if they lose next week and we happen to win today, and then I think that's kind of how I felt before the game started. Now I'm thinking you got to rest guys. everything Chris just said makes all the reason to rest people, Ted. I wouldn't play any starters next week.
Yeah,
right,
and the 49ers just won. I just the 49ers, Chris, if you could look up who the 49ers play next week, I think they have a pretty easy opponent.
They host Arizona. They're not losing that game.
I don't think they're going to lose Arizona.
Well, then it should be unanimous, Ted. We all want to.
Yeah. I would rest, guys. I mean, look, you're the 3rd seed now. And I think the Giants are pretty much locked into the 6th seed.
Yeah, the Giants can't get to the 6, and they can't get to the 5, and they can't drop to the 7. They're locked in at 6.
Yeah. So look, it's going to be a rematch of the Vikings and the Giants here in the wild card round of the NFC playoffs.
And I think we match up well with them, Ted. I still, even though it's kind of a shaky game against them, they're not a big powerhouse offensive team. So, how many people in the chat right now are saying, "Man, we're 12"? Tell these guys we're 12 in store. They sound like negative Nellies.
No, nobody.
We're just
nobody right now.
We're just being realistic, people.
Yeah. So look, I like, for as bad as this game was today. You know, we talked about the offense and how there was not a sense of urgency and that they weren't very good running the ball. The Minnesota Vikings defense for about 2.5, 3 quarters wasn't bad. I mean, you know, with just over 2 minutes left in the half, Aaron Rodgers was only 5 of 10 for 37 yards. Now Aaron Jones had made some money. I think he had over 100 yards rushing in the first half, but the only time the Packers scored was on that interception return and on the kick return. And it seemed like if the Vikings offense could get something going, that the defense was holding their own. And then, you know, the offense kept turning the ball over, giving the Packers a short field, and they just got tired and started, you know, getting run over, which is what happens when you can't stop the run, which is the Achilles. I mean, the running game for the Minnesota Vikings, whether it's on offense or defense, I think is going to be the thing that leads to a quick playoff exit if they don't get that fixed on both sides of the ball, guys.
Yeah, the Vikings were down 14-3, and the defense had given up 0 points. That's always a negative.
Yeah, I mean,
that's never something you want to see.
Going into halftime, it should have been 13-3, guys. You got to take those 14 points away from the kickoff return and the interception. It's 13-3. They're maybe coming out with a little more juice, only being down 10 to start the third quarter. I don't know. I don't want to try to say that's an excuse or anything, but they put themselves in that big old giant early hole, Ted.
Yeah.
If you're going to get in the hole, you got to climb your way out.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
they imploded on themselves, man.
They did. And it's concerning, you know,
it is concerning. It is.
I like Kevin O'Connell. You know, they're Jeff Schwartz, former lineman he played for the Vikings for a couple of years. He's a film guy now. He's got a pretty popular Twitter account. He said he had Brian Dable at the end of the Giants game when they won it. He's like, he had Dable as his coach of the year. And I said, well, what about Kevin O'Connell? I'm just genuinely curious here. He's like, well, have you seen the Giants roster? And I replied, well, have you seen the Vikings defense? And I thought that was a big reason why O'Connell should be considered coach of the year. I don't think the Giants have been like embarrassed 4 or 5 times. They don't have as many wins as the Vikings do, but I think they've been in games more than the Vikings. I mean, when the Vikings lose, man, they lose bad. I mean, it's not even competitive, and that's flat out troubling as we head to the postseason.
I'll pull up the Giants schedule and take a look at their losses here while you guys are.
You know, Ted, that's a really good point that they. You know, some of these losses the Vikings had are just incredibly bad, and you don't want to see that going into the playoffs. But I said we matched up good against the Giants. But if you look at the roster of the Giants, you know, people talk about, should we fire the defensive coordinator for the Vikings or offensive coordinator, whatever? It's a real simple question. The Vikings have better players on their defense to be this sorry. They're going to have to get rid of Donatel at the end of the season. He's going to get fired. Get rid of him. Because they have too many good players to have that ranking that's not right.
I would be surprised. Yeah, I would think Ed Donatel will not be back.
Like, conversely speaking, the Vikings have they have a lot of people they can go to on offense, especially with Hawkins in there now.
Yeah. And
they don't generate near enough possession time or drives or even points. And that's why it's concerning to me about the play calling and everything. But the Giants haven't been blown out. I think that the guy makes a good point. My book.
Yeah.
Couple of things to mention here. Inchon DM in our chat here says, not a fan of trying to manually duplicate the 87 Twins negative run differential magic. Big kudos for an 87 Twins reference. That's impressive. And also, Green Bay is doomed to lose to San Francisco again. So it is written. If the Packers do make the playoffs, that's where they're going, because they'll be the 7 and San Francisco will be the 2, because the Eagles are officially locked into the 1 spot now. But yeah, the Giants losses this year. They lost to the Cowboys by 7. They lost to the Seahawks by 14. They lost to Detroit by 13. Dallas again by 8. A few weeks ago, they lost to the Eagles 48-22. And then they lost to us by 3 points. So yeah, they've had the one kind of blowout loss, but other than that, they haven't really been crushed the way we have several times this season.
And they have a tougher division, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, they do. They do.
Yep. I mean, all four of the NFC East teams could wind up making the playoffs, which is impressive all by itself. So,
real quick, we've had a couple people actually donate to the show in the live chat right now.
Really?
Inchon DM and our old buddy GMAC. I didn't even know that was a thing that you could do that, but
the Mac,
they just floated us $10, man. That's pretty cool.
Thanks,
guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Always good to hear from GMAC.
Awesome.
GMAC 72.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Drew?
Thank you. I'm with you and everything you just said about being concerning about. Why are some of these games just so lifeless? They're getting out coached. They don't look like a team that's won more than 1 or 2 games in some of these games.
No, they don't.
That Colts game, you could throw that in with getting your ass beat. Because if it's not the Colts, we're losing that game. That's because it was the Colts, but we were losing 33-0.
And look, and we said at the time, look, that was a great comeback and yada yada yada, and it was. I mean,
but it's concerning.
But we also said, look, you do that in the playoffs, and you're not coming back. And look what happened today. I mean, this is essentially a playoff game for Green Bay. In a lot of ways, it was a playoff game for the Vikings for playoff seeding to get home field advantage, and that's what happened. So now the Vikes they're going to get one home game. If they get by the Giants, now they're going to probably have to go to San Francisco, assuming the second seed beats the 7th seed in that wild card weekend. So I don't know, man. It's really become worrisome. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I mean, once is okay, whatever. Everybody has a bad game. Twice is like, well, okay. It's a deal now. It is officially a thing. Go ahead, Drew.
I want to point out just 2 things. The play that it sealed it for me that Donatel's got to be gone. We had them in like a 2nd and 16. We tackled them behind the line of scrimmage. It was a play when Patrick Peterson blitzed off the edge. We had great defensive play. They lost like 6 yards on first down. 2nd and 16. Rodgers goes back and he throws this. The guy ran a short square out. He caught the ball like 12 yards up the field and then ran for the next 5 and got the first down. Yeah. That one play right there, I said, that's it. There's no way you give up 17 yards. We're on a short zone play. The guy catches it and runs 5 more yards. That was it for me. The guy needs to be fired. And another thing, the Vikings' first reception by a wideout came with 6 minutes left in the second quarter.
Mm-hmm. You know what did it for me?
What?
So there was a point in the second half. The competitive phase of this game had already been decided, as John Facenda said in a Super Bowl 11 narrative. Sorry. The Minnesota Vikings trotted 10 guys out on the field on defense. They played with 10 guys for a play. And then like 3 or 4 players or 3 or 4 plays later, they had like 12, maybe 14 guys. I don't know. It was too many men on the field because they couldn't get their substitutions in. And that to me is Donatel in a nutshell. He's just always one step behind the opponent and not putting players in position to make a play. And the Vikings are going to need a lot of help on defense. I mean, look, this is that we thought they were going to be better simply because they could not be worse than they were last year. They added a couple pieces. You thought the younger corners and the guys in the secondary like Cam Bynum and Cam Dantzler would improve because they weren't rookies now, and they're just as bad as they were last year. The Vikings defense needs a ton of help.
As much as I enjoy throwing Ed Donatel under the bus, and I do, really, I do. But I'm pleased with the 10 men or whatever. Is it not the job of like Harrison Smith or Cameron Bynum to just do like a quick head count and say, hey, yo, we only got 10 guys on the Duke Shelley was looking over at the sideline going, do I call a timeout? Do I do what the hell do I do? And then by that time they'd already snapped the ball. So there's nothing you could do there, but somebody's got to, I know the officials have to count players on every snap or whatever. Does somebody on the defense have to do that too now, or what? I don't get it. It's bad.
Chris, if you're Harrison Smith and you're down by 60, you give a shit less how many people are out there. You want to go home.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of on the coaches to make sure the packages get subbed in there correctly. Mm-hmm. But the final line of defense has to be somebody counting. You usually have one guy counting it off, and it usually is a safety because they can see everybody. But I don't know what happened in that particular play. I think the defense is, and I don't want to blame it on the personnel. I'm blaming it on the scheme because the Vikings have good defensive players. They got. I don't know what it is, and they're not. Again, it's hard to put any of the losses on them because it should have been 13-3. I just don't. There's no creativity. There's no blitzing. It's not right. And
Drew, you talked about the offense not attacking, and it's a great point actually. The defense doesn't attack either. And that was kind of their thing early on in the year. Just sit back and keep everything in front of you, and not give up a big play. Well, they're giving up big plays and they're still not attacking. When Ed Donatel did a couple weeks ago.
Oh, he's got the yawns. There it comes.
It's been a late couple days. It's a depressing couple days too. When he did attack, the few times he did, it seemed to generate pressure and help the Vikings defense get off the field. They can. I have every confidence that they can win their opening round playoff game, like Detroit, if they play Detroit, Green Bay, if they end up playing to Green Bay, or the Giants, which is probably who they will play. I don't know that they could beat Philadelphia, Dallas, or San Francisco.
They can't. Not with this defense.
No.
They're going to get 40 points dropped on them again. It's not going to matter what the offense does.
Not with that offense either.
No, because the Vikings offense, I think Kevin O'Connell tries to figure out what the defense is doing and then counter it. And he's okay with, playing cat and mouse, wait and see kind of thing. And in the playoffs, you can't do that. You have to attack with what your weapons are and make the defense adjust. And Kevin O'Connell has not done that for 4 or 5 weeks, I would argue.
There's no adjustment by the offense, but the play I just mentioned on defense, it's kind of weird. I've watched the games with no volume, but the camera went right to Donatel. After that, the guy caught it and then ran the 5 yards and got the first down. The camera went right to him. And I was thinking, I wonder if they're talking about that being a ridiculous defensive setup for a 2nd and 16-yard play. But, offensively, what's weird, guys? You look at that Colts second half, they're clicking. Man, we're clicking on offense. We're moving the ball. We show great pace, great confidence. They're clicking. Everybody's blocking. They're moving the ball down. The second half of the Colts, man, look what they're doing. And the defense is getting 3 and outs and getting off the field. They're just firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
But they don't do that at the beginning of games. The first half of the game. Why the hell can't they just have a team meeting, isolate that second half of the Colts, and say, let's notice what we do here and do it again?
But to throw an old school boxing analogy out there, you got to go out there like you're Mike Tyson, and Kevin O'Connell seems fine with being Trevor Burbick. Because that fight lasted like 90 seconds or something like that. And
Burbick was sitting on his ass with his mouthpiece hanging out, and he's all cross-eyed, and he's fighting with the official to keep going. It's like, dude, you're done.
But there's been one game that we keep going back to for how the Vikings offense looks when they attack from the get-go, and that's that first Chicago game when they came out and Cousins completed like 21 or 22 passes in a row, and they scored touchdowns on their first 3 possessions, and they were just blowing the Bears out. And even that game managed to end up being close against the Bears team that is awful.
They took the lead. They took the lead in the fourth quarter.
They did. And then it's just, I don't get it with this team. That this team has the talent on offense to do those kind of things, but they don't. And I don't.
They don't.
I wonder with the injuries on the Vikings offensive line now, how that's going to affect things next week. I mean,
great question.
Schlottman is not coming back. He's done for the year with a broken
out.
leg. Bradbury, I expected them to rest Garrett Bradbury until the playoffs. I don't know if he's ready to play. I mean, he hasn't practiced. I would have thought if he was able to play, he might have given it a go in Green Bay with the number 1 seed and all that. Brian O'Neill's loss is bad.
Yeah.
What can the Vikings do to mitigate this reduced offensive line? I mean, because like if running behind Schlottman wasn't working, running behind Chris Reed sure the hell ain't gonna work.
No.
I got one word, Ted. It's old school, like Chris just mentioned.
Yeah.
You get those guys fired up on methamphetamines. Go the North Dallas 40 route. Give them cross tops. Get them so wired up their ass they block their grandmother. Get them fired up.
That's probably not gonna work in this day and age.
No.
And another thing, talking about so that on offense is my big concern. On defense, we talked about the run defense. The Vikings cannot set the edge anymore to save their lives. I mean, Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon were getting chunks and chunks of yards going off tackling around the end of the day. It's bad. I mean, Eric Kendricks, Jordan Hicks, they ain't it, man. They ain't it.
No, not anymore.
Nobody was even getting near him until they were 6 yards down the field on the perimeter.
I know, it was bad.
And other teams are running the kind of plays that we should be running with Dalvin Cook, but we insist on slamming Dalvin Cook into the middle of the line behind a third-string center again.
Why can't they get Cook to the outside? I don't get it.
I mean, the Packers ran for 163 yards today, averaged 4.9 yards per carry, and that is taken into consideration the Jordan Love victory formation kneel at the end of the game. Aaron Jones averaged 8 yards per carry, 14 carries, 111 yards. I mean, you look, the Vikings are, I don't want to say they're in a crisis, but they're damn near close to it. The defense is not good. The offensive line is battered. And they have this penchant for not showing up when they have to. They do this again, even at home in the playoffs. They're going to get run out of the building. They just are.
Yeah. I mean, you can't do this against Philadelphia or, San Francisco or Dallas or whatever. You can't do it against the Giants or the Seahawks or whoever it is either, because you can come back from deficits like that against the Colts. You're not coming back from that kind of deficit against teams that are actually good enough to make the playoffs.
No.
I think a big thing is the identity of the Vikings all year is to give up yardage, but let's not give up points.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they do.
Now you're doing
that doesn't always work. And sometimes people are going to execute on those points, and then you lose 40-3, and you lose 41 to whatever, and you get blown out, and you give up a bunch of points. So you can't. This is the other side of living by that rule, Chris. The bend but don't break. When it breaks, bad.
It breaks hard. Yeah.
So here's a good comment from Nelson Williams. He said, Kene Wangwu needs to be part of the game plan. Imagine him on a jet sweep. I would argue the reason Wangwu and Ty Chandler Chandler just came off the IR a couple weeks ago. But the one thing I've noticed is for all his limitations Dalvin Cook now seems to have, he still is a pretty legit pass blocker. And I don't think Wangwu or Chandler or even Madison's not bad. But the reason those two guys, Chandler and Wangwu, don't see the field is because I don't think they have the ability to pass block to the level Cook and Wangwu do. That's why they Cook and Madison do. That's why they're not seeing the field.
Right.
Well, I mean, they better start, because I don't know if either Cook or Madison are going to be here next year. I mean, Cook's cap number, I believe, is $14 million. He's not getting that kind of money.
Cook's he's not coming back at that price.
Thielen won't be back either. He's too much.
And and Madison's in the final year of his rookie contract. So Longwu and Chandler might be your top 2 running backs starting next season. If they don't know how to pass block, they better figure it out.
Had a good good showing from Jalen Naylor. Naylor, I don't even know her.
Haven't had that in a while, have we?
No.
Yeah, that was a heck of a play by him, wasn't it?
Scored a touchdown, and I think he ended up being the Vikings' leading receiver. Yeah, 3 catches, 89 yards, and the touchdown. He might be a potential wide receiver 3. And you talk about Thielen not coming back. He's done. He can't get separation anymore. KJ Osborne struggles to get separation. When you get your guy shut down, and the Packers did a hell of a job shutting down Justin Jefferson today. I think he only had 1 catch when it was all said and done.
Yep.
You don't have a lot of playmakers you can go to if Justin Jefferson gets taken out of the game. And so maybe Naylor's performance today is a portend of things to come, and a guy they can put in the offense and maybe make some plays. Cause man, the Vikings offense looked old and slow today.
Yeah, because it's an easy offense to game plan for. Easy. It's not a difficult offense to game plan for when the Vikings aren't attacking. If the Vikings are in attack mode, it's an extremely hard offense to stop. But for some reason, Kevin O'Connell doesn't want to do it. He wants to do a 4-yard pass and get a 3,700 play drive. I mean, if the Vikings are just running vanilla offense, Ted, they're easy to game plan for.
Yeah, and they
shut the run down. You get pressure on Cousins. They're not going to spread the ball deep. You don't have to play your safeties deep. We don't throw it deep. Yeah. They don't throw deep passes. They're very easy to game plan for. So I don't know about. I think the problem. I know everybody bags on the defense, but our offense is a problem.
It's not consistently effective. It's not.
It's not.
And that's gonna be a problem as we head to the playoffs. We just got another donation from Dan V900. Just Dan, thanks for those of you that are donating. For one, what is this wizardry? Because I don't even know that you could do this. But thank you so much. It will go thanks directly back into the show. We'll get prizes and all that stuff. So
that's really nice. That's really nice of people. Thank you.
We still got over 60 people watching this. Real quick, Chris. I'll get right back to you. We got over 60 people watching. Just say hi. Make a. Don't need to make a donation. Just say hi. Just make a comment. You'll be entered for a drawing at the end of the game. Chris, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that we've got Mark Stein in our not the Mark Stein, but a Mark Stein in our comments section, channeling his inner John McKay, asking, "What do you think of your team's execution?" And I'm all for it. I thought that's one of the great football quotes of all time. I just wanted to make sure that one got out there.
Rest in peace, John McKay.
One thing, not necessarily game related, that I want to talk about. I never want to hear Jim Nantz and Tony Romo call another Minnesota Vikings game again as long as I live.
I heard there was a lot of
going to be in Green Bay. Oh my God!
I heard there was a lot of slurping. I don't do volume on Viking games. I haven't for over 20 years, but I could tell by the messages.
At one point,
God, it was terrible.
At one point, they cut to Romo and Nantz in the booth on camera, and Nantz was naked. He had rubbed himself in oil, and he was masturbating to Aaron Rodgers, and the Packers making a Super Bowl run. It was disgusting. Man, that was a disgusting act.
I saw that, and Nantz was wearing those assless chaps that the strippers wear. He was wearing assless chaps.
I just want to point out that all chaps are by definition assless. just putting it out there, they are. But
Nantz wearing the assless chaps. Do the Vikings?
I just want to say that if the NFL is going to put us on CBS, please give us Kevin Hall and Brent Green going forward, because God, the Nantz and Romo thing is just and we get the crap kicked out of us every time Nantz and Romo call. They did the Dallas game this year. They did the Buffalo game back a few years ago when Josh Allen jumped over Anthony Barr. They did a Vikings Patriots game where the Vikings got stomped. I mean, I don't want to hear those guys calling Vikings games anymore. Jesus.
Luckily, I don't get to hear anybody calling Viking games. I love it. I love watching the game with no volume. I love it.
Our friend of the show, Raymond Hoagland, just dropped $20 on the donation. Look,
thanks, guys.
If you guys are going to give us money, the Vikings can lose 41-10 every week, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, what is going on?
I don't know that.
Hey, does Toots just have a webcam going right now? I don't know about?
Starting the new year off right. Thank you so much, guys, for all of that. Just thank you so much.
I really
We're not
appreciate that.
We're not going to subscribe to OnlyTunes or anything like that. That'd be a little awkward.
Hey guys, do the Vikings have any offensive plays that gets the quarterback out of the pocket? That was my first note I wanted to ask you guys. What the hell? Do they have any designed rollout plays? And if so, why the hell don't they try it?
They
do the same drop every time, Ted. They never roll them out ever.
Yeah, not very often. They
That was a staple of the Kubiak offense for a couple of years. I mean, they let Cousins roll out all the time. They don't do it anymore.
You guys give me a quick answer on the play calling next year. Would you think about bringing in an OC or just leave it alone?
I mean, we have an OC. I don't know if but he doesn't actually call the plays. I understand.
You mean have Wes Phillips call the plays?
Or yeah, either him or just a guy that O'Connell's not calling the plays anymore. He did that because McVay did that. That's what he's used to.
The Vikings,
his play calling is bad.
It's inconsistent. I'm okay with it, and I'm okay with him doing it next year because I go back to it being his first year, and the Vikings offense.
That's a good point.
For all its fits and starts is pretty good. I mean, the running game isn't great, but Dalvin Cook, and the situation running could be better, but I'm not disappointed with the offense in total. I wish they would be more consistent throughout the game. Yes. Instead of, playing good for like a quarter and a half and then turtling until the fourth quarter. But for the most part, I'm okay with it. So I'll give it to him for next year too, before I get pissy about it.
Yeah, that's all fair. That's all fair. And I think overall, I just want to see a little bit more creativity and maybe on, 2nd and 3, maybe throw it down the field or I guess my point is, guys, it's too predictable for me. I can almost call these plays on TV as I watch them. When I look at the alignment and I look at the running backs and I look at, you can almost, it's just, I think I want it to be just less predictable.
Yeah, I do too. And I want to be less predictable and more consistent. I mean, the first Bears game, they scored touchdowns on their first 3 drives and then like nothing for pretty much the rest of the game. Or they'll get a touchdown field goal and then just go 3 and out, and not pick it up again till late third quarter into the fourth quarter. I'm with you there. I wish they could get more consistent on offense and just flat out better on defense. And I think there are going to be some hard questions that need to be asked from longtime veterans on whether or not they're going to be back next year with salary cap implications and all that on both sides of the ball. We talked about Thielen a little bit. I think Eric Kendricks is the guy they're going to have to look at. Daniil Hunter maybe, but with his salary, I don't know. There's the Vikings after the playoffs are over are going to have a lot of tough questions, and I would rather they be asking these questions as the NFC North division champion going to the playoffs than I would 8 and 9 and just being in that fog of gloom like you so adequately put it, Drew. So,
and I know it's his first year. I don't want to bag on him too heavily about it, but I think between year 1 and year 2, Kevin O'Connell, the one thing he's going to do is kind of get a little bit harsher with people. I mean, at some point you got to sit down and go, dude, you've given up 400 plus yards the last 4 weeks. If you give up 400 plus this week, you're fired. And I don't think O'Connell seems like more of a positive kind of guy,
Yeah.
But at some point, as a head coach, you got to break some balls, Chris Gage. Yeah. You have to. You have to do.
Sure do. Absolutely. I mean, there's something to be said for, like Drew has said a bunch of times, the gloom is finally gone, and having that kind of shiny, happy people, positive attitude type outlook or whatever. But occasionally, like Drew said, sometimes you got to put your foot in somebody's ass. And I don't know if Kevin O'Connell can do it. I don't know.
No, it might be a learned thing.
We'll see. We'll see. He needs to figure something out between now and the first round of the playoffs, or it's going to be a one and done.
I'm not saying you got to be Mike Ditka, guys, tirade around the side. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying, but I don't know if he has enough edge to it. We talked about this back in March, and I said, is O'Connell too nice of a guy? But he's 12-4. I'm not going to question what he's doing. He just needs to. And I think we're a little bit past, can they figure it out now? We're 2 weeks from the playoffs, guys. This is it.
Yeah.
They're not going to figure anything out on defense. They're going to have to do it with smoke and mirrors like they have been doing.
Yeah, and the folks that are saying, well, the Vikings have yet to play a complete game. Look, they're not going to play a complete game. They're not.
Right.
This is who they are. I mean, you could still say that after 6, 7, 8 weeks, maybe even 10 weeks, but with only one game left, this is who the Vikings are in 2022. And so we're going to have to roll with what they put out in the field until they get beat. So we'll see. All right, we've been going on long enough. Ruby, are you almost ready to spin the wheel?
Just give me a few minutes, okay?
Okay. Well, she's getting ready. Drew, why don't you give us your final thoughts on today and this terrible, horrible, no good, very bad football.
We kind of both predicted this during the preview show.
I didn't think it was going to be this bad, though.
No, I don't think it was going to be this bad, too. But neither of us thought we were going to come out and win this game because, and you got to hand it to that team from Wisconsin. They played with an edge today.
Yeah.
They played pretty fired up football. They were fired up for each other. And that's what you got to do as a team, be fired up for each other. I'm still stoked. I'm putting this one behind me. We're getting ready for the playoffs. You got the Bears next week. But it is what it is. And we are the North champions, and we're going to move forward. We know we have problems, but the Vikings are in the playoffs. Next week isn't their final game. And so, honestly, I'm just happy I get to do more shows with Christopher Gates, man. He's always great to have on the show, but we're gonna see what happens. I'm not gonna play much into next week, Ted, but if they're gonna be in the playoffs, they can regroup, they can be fired up.
Yeah. Chris?
Absolutely. I mean, we could be like the last couple of years, we could be going into the final week of the season, looking forward to a game that's completely meaningless. Not really a lot going on, a lot of backups playing. But we're not doing that this time around. I mean, we have meaningful football left to play here. I mean, next week's game, I don't know if it's super meaningful given the way thing bounced today with the playoff seedings, but this team has playoff games to play, and it's gonna be something to look forward to for us after a couple of seasons of not being able to have that. So yeah, I'm happy that's gonna happen.
Chris, would you sit starters next week? Yes or no?
I probably would. Yeah.
Drew?
Yes.
Yeah. So you guys would both sit starters next week.
If we were playing on a field that, like I said, didn't resemble a cow pasture, maybe I would play starters. But now with injuries and whatnot, we don't need guys getting hurt, like stepping in gopher holes or whatever the hell is going on at the field right now. So yeah.
And if JJ needed 50 or 75 yards, I would leave. Probably play Cousins for the first half because it's not a record you're going to come around a long time. But he's not. Yeah. He has no chance to get it now, so there's no reason for him to play.
Not anymore.
Yeah, look, for as bad as today was, the Minnesota Vikings still won the NFC North. They're still the division champions. They still got a home playoff game. They're not going to get the second seed. They're going to be third seed, which probably gives them which will give them a 6 seed matchup against the Giants, a team they've already beaten. So it's a good matchup for the Vikings. What happens after that, we'll see. But it's been, they're 12-4, which is, like 3 more wins than I thought they were going to get this year. And they still have a game left to play. And I would also sit the starters next week. I don't think that the 2 seed is realistic at this point. Sit starters, get everybody as healthy as you can, and get ready for the Giants in 2 weeks, because next week against the Bears doesn't matter. It doesn't. Nope. It just doesn't.
Can we get these false starts out of the way?
I think they will. If Reed
for God's
plays,
sake, it's week 17, Ted. You shouldn't be having 3 false start penalties in a game.
A lot of that is on Schlotman getting hurt and having to put in Reed and being in.
What about those delay of games?
Yeah, same thing. It was the same thing. It'll be fine. I'm not worried about that.
One thing I do want to correct myself on is someone corrected me before. The entire NFC East can't make the playoffs anymore because I guess the Commanders were eliminated today because of their loss. So
the
entire NFC East can't make the playoffs anymore. That 7th seed is going to either be Seattle, Detroit, or Green Bay.
Yeah.
So Ted, if the Niners win next week, we're 3 seed and the Giants are locked in at 6. That's the game.
That's it.
Yeah,
okay.
That's pretty much guaranteed at this point, I would think.
Yeah, the Giants can't move.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only way we're not the 3 is if we win and San Francisco loses to the fighting David Blouse next week at home.
Well, good. That'll give us 2 weeks to game plan for running up the middle on first down every possession.
Be sweet. That'll be some sweet action. All right. Ruby, if you're ready, go ahead and break out the wheel of Toonce's Destiny and see who's our winner for this week.
Hey, do you like the Wheel of Toonce's Destiny?
I love it.
I love it too. Chris likes
All
it
right.
too. Look, Chris grinning right now.
Here we
Absolutely.
go.
I like Invisible Wheel more, but I mean, I don't know if we're going to get Invisible Wheel this week.
Can you hear the wheel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah!
Purple
Haze.
haze.
I know Purple Haze is a big Viking fan. I've talked to him in other chats and stuff. That guy's awesome. Purple
All right.
Haze, congratulations on winning.
Congratulations, Purple Haze. Get a hold of Ruby at VikingsReport@gmail.com.
Purple Haze.
She'll send you a link to our Vikings Report prize vault. Pick something out, and she'll mail it out to you.
Purple Haze all in my brain. Lately, things in the prize vault haven't seemed the same.
All right, Vikings get rolled 41-17.
Was that the final? 41-17.
Yeah, Nick Mullins comes in, throws a late touchdown. Very much like Bob Lee at the end. This is like Super Bowl 11. That's all it was.
Wait, so this week's going to be you need to put Mullins in there.
No, absolutely
no, absolutely not. So
Davis.
no, Vikings roll. They're still they drop to the third seed, but they're the NFC North champs. Going to be the third seed. Going to get a home playoff game, and we'll cross the bridge when we get to that from after that point. So for Chris, for Drew, for Ruby, I'm Ted, your humble host. Thanks so much for watching us. SKOL Vikings, and we will